Why was a reform needed in music in particular? So many reasons, I've already mentioned some. The notation required decades to master. It was so complex. Because it was old, it was developed a few centuries ago. New melodies had been developed in the meantime. The old notation could not really record them really well. Another thing, the old notation could not record the duration of each sign. So you need to have heard it so that you knew how long to hold your voice for. If you hadn't heard it from the person who wrote it, it was very difficult, if not impossible, to chant a piece, if you hadn't heard it from its composer. There was no textbook for beginners. There was no systematic method, and there was no systematic institution. You couldn't just go to a school and learn how to chant. You have to find a good teacher and stay by them and spend many significant amount of time, sometimes many years next to them. Imagine this, one person went to one teacher, another person went to the other teacher. Depending on how the teachers chanted, wherever they had differences, the students would have differences. And imagine a teacher in northern areas, a teacher in southern areas, there were vast differences between the oral performance. So the students, they became different schools, everybody was chanting different, there was no common denominator. Of course, during the whole period, Constantinople and secondarily Mount Athos were the traditional centers of excellence. So everyone recognized that Constantinople was, and especially the Ecumenical Patriarchate, was the center, was the point of reference. However, in those days they didn't have the recordings, they didn't have the internet, they didn't have the means that we have today. So oral tradition different greatly. To make things even harder, even in Constantinople, there were not many people who actually knew the old method. In fact, as some people may know, around the middle of the 18th century, or was it the 17th? Around that time, there was a lack of teachers in Constantinople, so the Protopsaltis, the first chanter of the Patriarchate, had to leave Constantinople and go to Mount Athos, where there was one monk that knew the old method, and he went there, spent time with him so that he could learn, and then he went back to Constantinople. So very few people actually, it was so hard to learn, very few people actually knew, so it was an imminent danger that eventually that system would become extinct.